All right, NeoHazard, welcome to the program. Let's talk a little bit about Sage this year. It feels really different this year because of Sonic Mania, doesn't it?
Yeah. We've had to make a few adjustments for Mania, out of both respect and just to make sure that people get a chance not only to play the fan games that we got on display, but Mania as well.
And I think that's the really special thing about this year because it's coming off such a rousing success of a game that has largely been born out of the community. I mean, we have some big names in this community that started in fan games, now making the real thing, and by almost all accounts, critical sales, etc. They've been successful. How has that changed the dynamic of this year's shows? Have you seen more entries? Have you seen, a different variety of entries? We're watching a little bit of the entries that we expected now on the screen. How is that? How has the dynamic changed? How has Mania changed that?
One thing that we've noticed this year is that there's definitely a lot more indie titles, more original games that people are coming to. It's still people that are from the Sonic community, but we've got a lot of games that are either not Sonic at all, which normally there's a few in there, but this year we've got some indie titles. We have I believe it's Allegro game. It looks like something that would have been from Treasure in like the mid 90s. We've got a game that's inspired by Freedom Planet. It's Astral World. There's several games in there that it seems like people are trying to branch out more from Sonic and try to kind of get their name out there, sort of like what Freedom Planet and Spark the Electric Jester games like that did. When it comes to Mania, I am kind of surprised that we haven't seen the drop dash too much, but one thing that we did do this year, just out of respect to Mania itself and the people behind it, we made sure that assets from Mania weren't accepted this year, just because this is the first time for Sage since the early 2000s that there's been a game where the assets would be so readily available. Prior to this, you had the Sonic Advance games, but that was kind of a different internet, so to speak, at the time. Now, with everything so readily available, I mean, Mania, when the PC version came out, you had people getting their hands dirty in that within minutes, almost. So we wanted to be sure that when it came to fan games, people weren't just ripping up Mania, throwing the stuff in the game, and going, look what I did. So you'll see a lot of games that have nothing to do with Sonic this year. You'll see a few returning projects like Sonic 2 HD, and you also have some that are just completely new. It seems like people are really trying to do their own sort of thing, kind of like what Mania was, and that's really exciting. There's a lot of original graphics, original music. Sage has definitely evolved from what it used to be, where it was using the old assets from games and sort of it being less like a level maker and more like a clearly defined experience per each game.
So let's talk a little bit about what, to my eyes, kind of feels like one of the marquee games, which is the next demo for Sonic 2 HD, because that has seen a hell of a development cycle in the community, years, if I'm not mistaken. I remember covering that when I was regularly covering the Sonic fan community, and that was several years back, and it's still a thing in development. Tell us, from what you've seen so far, how you think that project's going and how you think that might be received when Sage opens this weekend.
So Sonic 2 HD is definitely going to be one of the biggest games that we have this year. It seems like there's always you have your surprises and you have your ones that you've never heard of, and then you have the ones like Sonic 2 HD, which people instantly recognize the name and they go, I know that, I'm very excited to try that. There's others on there too, like there's the Chow Resort Island and the Sonic World and games like that. But Sonic 2 HD is a game that we haven't seen a demo of, just bits and pieces, for the last 2 or 3 years, possibly longer. And what I think people will be surprised by is that there's more content to it than most people think. Certainly more than what's given away in the Sage trailer or the Sonic 2 HD trailer itself. Not going to give away what it is, and I don't want to sit here and pretend like the whole game is done either, but I think people are going to be very surprised and very happy with what they play. It's an absolutely beautiful game. The team is definitely recognizing their vision for it, and it's very exciting to have the new demo at Sage itself.
And, I mean, that's just one of the 2D titles. You know, right now I'm watching the montage for Sonic Beyond the Speed. There's obviously a lot of 2D fare for those who want it, but there's also a lot of 3D fare, which is a relatively new kind of foray, in my view, for Sonic fan games. It's been around for a few years, but, you know, you don't 3D, especially using Unity, using those types of engines, is kind of a whole new world. Whereas, you know, I grew up on Click and Play, Multimedia Fusion, the Games Factory, things like that. It was a purely 2D world for most of us until about, 6-7 years ago, when the technology finally caught up. You know, do you think the quality, or maybe not the quality, but the what's the word I should be thinking of? The craftsmanship, the dedication is there now for 3D just as much as it has been for the past several years for 2D fan games?
So for the longest time, the only 3D Sonic game we really had, per se, was Sonic Robo Blast 2. But in recent years, like you said, it's caught up more. We have games that are in Unity, and we have games that are utilizing Sonic GDK. We have a few 3D games this year, and it seems like each year we start to get more and more ambitious titles. Last year we had Green Hill Paradise Act 2, and of course Sonic Utopia. This year, unfortunately, both of those titles aren't joining us, but like I was saying earlier, we do have the new version of Sonic World, Sonic World R8, Revision 8. We also have Sonic Ages and Sonic Districts as well. And it's definitely still in its infancy. And part of that is because when you have the 2D Sonic formula, that's something that has almost been brought down to a science. It's at the very least consistent as far as the games go. So when it comes to mimicking those physics and recreating them, fans have had, technically, 25 years to do so. But when it comes to the more 3D prospects, as anyone that's listening knows, when it comes to 3D Sonic, it varies. It varies as to what the gameplay is, and it varies as to what to expect from a game. Now, when you get these 3D Sonic games, it's a different interpretation each time. So, whereas you can have a easy-to-use engine, say Sonic Worlds, which is the multimedia fusion engine that has been used for years and years and years for fan games, where you're going to be fairly consistent with the physics and how it's going to play. When it comes to a 3D Sonic game, there is pre-made engines like Sonic GDK, but it's a whole different ball game. It's something that arguably hasn't ever quite been done. I don't want to say that it's never been done right, but it's never been done consistently. And so fan games kind of have this sort of minefield that they have to navigate through when it comes to making a 3D game far more than a 2D one. Sonic World, for instance, is probably the most ambitious just because it's been going for so long. There's a ton of characters, levels that are all over the place. Some from Sonic Adventure, some are originals, some are from Sonic Heroes, Sonic Adventure 2. It's one of those things where making a fan game in and of itself, making any video game in and of itself, is a very ambitious endeavor. But when it comes to making a 3D Sonic fan game, it's almost an apples to oranges comparison to the 2D ones.
Do you think that's because perhaps 3D Sonic in of itself, it can be argued, has not even been perfected at the professional level, at the Sega level?
It's a lofty statement.
It is. But I think a lot of people would make that kind of argument because, 3D Sonic has been so hit and miss, even since Sonic Adventure, and we can have fond memories of Sonic Adventure all we want, but the fact of the matter is, it's been kind of a rocky road for 3D Sonic. There just hasn't been that consistency, and so you don't really have that formula in 3D Sonic that you have with 2D Sonic, because the 3D formula has just been so much tinkered with at the professional level.
Right. And I think part of that is 3D Sonic, as it's documented, is way, way more divisive than, say, 2D Sonic, right? Because you have people that love Sonic Adventure, you have people that hate Sonic Adventure, but then they'll turn around and you have others that say, oh, Generations or Boost is okay, but I hate Adventure, vice versa, or I like Unleashed, or I like Lost World, or whatever. So part of that is where you can just focus on 2D. That's going to be more level design, and people won't say too much about the physics. Whereas you get to 3D, and it's just like, there's so much more to account for. And when it comes to the gameplay, people are going to have totally different ideas as to what should work when it comes to that 2D to 3D transition.
But I look at titles like Sonic World, for example, that looks, visually at least looks quite good. But like you say, I guess the argument can be made that just because it looks good, even for a fan game, for a professional title, there are other considerations like physics, like just the base gameplay, and it's just been so, it's just been the consistency, whether you like X title or dislike Y title in the Sonic series, the consistency really hasn't been there. So I wonder if it's just been, 2D Sonic is so tried and true that fans would prefer to just make things there. We've obviously seen more experimentation with 3D Sonic fan games in recent years. Do you think that's just because of the ambition, or just because the technology has been there, or both?
Honestly, I think it's both. Because as the years wear on, you're getting a younger generation who their idea, I guess you could say, of Sonic, or really their first games, the ones that they loved, were the 3D Sonic titles. So when it comes to them wanting to make a fan game, they have no interest in doing a 2D Sonic game, which is fine. That's completely okay. But I don't want to call it an issue, but the deal here is that's why we're starting to see more and more 3D Sonic fan games. It's less because, I don't want to say less of the technology being there, but more that's where their interest is, and that's where you're going to start seeing that. There's always going to be people that want to do a 2D Sonic fan game. That's always going to be around, especially because the documentation for it is much easier, and getting it off the ground is a lot simpler. But I believe that because we're going to see these younger folks coming in and wanting to sort of recapture that 3D title that they loved in their own sort of manner, we're going to see more 3D games as time wears on.
So let's move on a little bit from Sonic for just a second, because Sage has become much more than a Sonic Amateur Games Expo. You're seeing different fan games from different franchises now, including some franchises that are owned by Nintendo, which Nintendo has notoriously not been as kind to fan games and fan works as Sega has. I think that is irrefutably so. Do you ever worry that Nintendo or another company might make an example out of this expo?
Not really. I know that part of why we decided to be careful with the Mania assets was because it's so fresh and so new that we didn't want to step on Sega's toes, because Sega has always been very, very kind to us. And also part of it was it was a lot of our friends worked on Mania, right? See, we don't want to sit there and just say, "Oh, go ahead and use their stuff." We out of respect to them and respect to Sega and respect to everyone involved, we said, "Don't use the Mania stuff." This year is a little bit different. We always seem to have at least one Mario game that's snuck in there, and this year, the one Nintendo game we have is Super Mario Flashback, which that, while it doesn't use original sounds, it does use original graphics, and I don't recall if it has original music, but I know there is a lot of things that are created by that team themselves. Of course, that wouldn't mean that Nintendo wouldn't come knocking on our door, but I don't have any reason to believe that we would ever draw the ire of them or anywhere else, especially because Sage is just one of those things where it's done completely out of love. There's no ads, there's no links to Patreon, there's no anything at all that can be interpreted as us trying to make money off of a product. I think anymore, typically, the easiest way to get someone to want to go after you is when you're trying to make money. And I can understand why people do that, because a lot of these projects take a lot of time and effort, and you do want to see a little bit of change for that, and cash is motivating. I mean, that's the bottom line for anything. But all the projects that we have, unless one has slipped by, they don't have Patreons, they don't have anything that can be linked back as someone trying to make money. Everything that you see at Sage is a labor of love. And I think in the long run, Sage does a pretty good job of expressing that.
And it's interesting that you bring up the notion that, everybody wants, ultimately everybody wants to see, a light at the end of the tunnel, a reward for their hard work. And I think an event like Sage proves that it can be done, not necessarily through the construct of a fan game, but you look at Freedom Planet, you look at the team behind Mania. I mean, Christian Whitehead, if I'm not mistaken, had a lot of guts and sent a prototype to Sega well before Mania was even on the table to remaster some of the old Sonic titles, and it worked. There certainly is an argument to be made that, especially now with the success of Mania, especially with the success of Christian Whitehead and Taxman, of Stealth, who, were both, they all came up in the community, that, for some of these developers, they can begin to see a light at the end of the tunnel, and if it's not through a Sonic fan game, perhaps taking that constructive criticism that a stage like this provides and applying it towards something more original, or sort of, taking what they've learned from their Sonic fan game experience and beginning to, make something different with it. Is that, I have to think for most developers, that's probably the hope. I mean, I can't imagine every developer in here wants to work on a Sonic title. Do you?
No, and it's actually something that I have spoken with people that work on these projects about. A lot of it is labors of love, but it's also a learning experience, because there are pre-made engines, but a lot of this you have to sort of just learn for yourself, so to speak, about how programming works, and how, even if you're just using Game Maker, Multimedia Fusion, Construct, what have you, you still have to know the ins and outs of those programs to do what you want to do. And thankfully, we're at a point where limitations really don't exist. So while this is also a labor of love and a fan thing, this is also where you can get your hands dirty and learn something, and then eventually go on to make your own sort of game. And that's part of why we do have quite a few indie titles this year as well, I believe. It's from people that may or may not have worked on Sonic games in the past and are coming back to say, this is what I'm working on and this is what I have. I know that we have plenty of people who unfortunately couldn't make it this year, but do also have original titles. Like I was saying, you have Lake Feppard, who he did several Sonic games and then eventually transitioned into his own titles of like Spark the Electric Gesture. And like you were saying, we have the Freedom Planet games, which that originally started as a Sonic fan game and then dropped all that and originally became its own thing. And now we have the sort of Freedom Planet series. And there's also a bit of a stretch, but there's Pelican 13, who did the Sonic Fan remix. That was very big when it came out at the time. That was the whole classic Sonic in 3D, the 2.5D, I suppose you could call it. That was a really big success. And that was before Sonic Generations even. That was, I think, almost 8 years ago now.
Oh, yeah.
And he's gone on and he's been working on the 90s arcade GP racing game for a while now. So it's one of those things where I believe that it is both a labor of love, but it's also a very good learning exercise for people as well.
So let's talk a little bit about what happens at Sage beyond just playing fan games. You've got streams coming up, you've got some other experiences. Tell us about some of that.
So the biggest thing that we have this year is definitely the return of the Sage Tube, which in the past what we originally had was the Sage Cast, which when streaming wasn't really a thing as far as video is concerned, but we had the internet radio. As time went on, though, the Sage Cast became the Sage Tube, where we have people that are going to be streaming, playing the games, giving their commentary. We've got folks like Red Hot Sonic and Tails channel on the docket. We've got the schedule, which will be updating throughout the week with more streamers and hopefully more events. I believe it's on Wednesday. We actually have someone who's hosting a Puyo Puyo tournament. There's a free-to-play version of Puyo Puyo on, I think it's called puyoversus.net. I might be wrong on that. But it's a free version that you can download for your PC. He's hosting a round-robin tournament. That should be quite a lot of fun, actually. We've also got some other contests planned. They're going to kind of be... Some will be spur of the moment. Others will be... announced later on. The biggest thing to note, we are not going to be doing Rage this year during Sage. We are planning on doing it towards the beginning of next year. I have had a few people ask if Rage was returning, not during Sage, but we will be doing it after Sage towards the beginning of next year. We also are planning on doing a stream before Sage launches. It will be Friday the 29th. Hopefully this will be airing whenever that before that stream goes live. It'll be 8 p.m. Central and goes till midnight. So about a 4-hour stream. We're going to try to hit as many games as we possibly can. I can't say that we will hit them all, but it will be a preview of what Sage has to offer. And then the site will go live at midnight.
So, since you'll be doing a sort of a marathon stream ahead of the opening, I wonder what games you're kind of looking forward to playing the most out of here.
I can safely say I'm looking forward to Sonic 2 HD, and I always feel like I'm going to mess it up because I want to say it's Petite Hedgehog, but I'm not sure how to say the title exactly. It's either Petite or Petite, or maybe even Petite Hedgehog. Point being, I'm looking forward to that one just because it's very original graphics. I really like the style to that one. Another one that I'm really looking forward to, though, and I think it might be a bit of a sleeper hit, is Battlecross Fever. It is a 12-person multiplayer fighting game. It looks like very heavily inspired by Super Smash Brothers and kind of Street Fighter fighting games all over the place, basically kind of coming together to be one big mishmash. it looks like a ton of fun. I'm very excited to try that one. I've always been a huge fan of Super Mario Flashback, so I'm very excited to play that. And believe it or not, Unlimited Trees Sonic 1, it's a goofy name. Unlimited Trees is a very goofy character himself, but he has a lot of ambitious ideas. I'm very excited to try that one. And finally, I think not more than the rest, but I'm very excited to play the Chow Resort Island. That game's been out for a while, but I haven't actually dove into it yet. And the Crash Bandicoot game, that's going to be the last one I'll list. The Crash Intense Adventure, that comes from the person that did the Sonic Boom and the Smash Crew game last year. He did it was basically a Super Smash Bros. Clone originally for Rage, and we deemed it way too good to be at Rage. So he finished it up, added some different features and things to it, and submitted it to Sage, and it was really, really good. Well, he's back this time, but it's with a Crash Bandicoot game, and it's got his art style to it. It's once again original art. I really like that, and it looks like it plays exactly like the Game Boy Advance Crash Bandicoot game. So very, very excited to play that one as well.
And definitely the Battlecross title you had mentioned, that looks really exciting for me. You know, the other one that kind of caught my eye in the trailer that was released this week was, I believe it was the Sonic game that almost had like a Resident Evil type feel to it. Sonic.exe, I want to say it was. That looks really interesting.
The Assault.
Yeah. The Assault, yes.
Yeah, that game was around last year. It was very, very interesting. The only issue is that as of now, unfortunately, they submitted to the trailer. We still have yet to get their booth, though. We are willing to work with them to get their booth up if it's after Sage opens, just because we know there's a game there, and we obviously have footage of it, but unfortunately, at this point in time, they have yet to submit a booth. So we're still trying to get in touch with them, still trying to make sure that we can hopefully get them in.
That would be a shame to see something that looks really unique and interesting and kind of moody in a very different kind of way. We joke a lot in the community about edginess, but that looks kind of legit scary in some instances. But you know, it's definitely something that's kind of, if I'm able to play it, I definitely want to check it out. So NeoHazard is with us on TSSZ, and I know this is not just an effort spearheaded by you, this is a group effort, and if you want to shout out to those folks in our closing minutes, now would be a good time, I would say.
Yeah. So we have Pedro. He's been the one that's been putting the whole site together. It looks absolutely great. Last year we went maybe just a little bit too ambitious. This year we've scaled back. It's a lot simpler, but it's still an absolutely beautiful looking website. Works great. Perfect Chaos Zero, as always, is the one that basically bankrolls everything, keeps everything up, keeps everything running, which is great. We also have tons of staff and modders. We've got Teapot, Jazz, Gsoft, and all the advisors that are in the Sonic Fan Games HQ Discord, which I'm sure we'll see another influx of users like we did last year, joining in and wanting to talk fan games and everything. And anyone that has submitted a fan game or is going to be checking out Sage, spreading the word, we want to thank every single one of you, because you're the people that make Sage happen year after year.
Well, NeoHazard, we appreciate your time with us here on TSSZ, and we're going to be covering every single game that we can in the next week. So we're looking forward to it just as much as you are. So thanks for joining us here.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for having me.